Imagine planning the perfect wedding for someone else only to discover the bride is the woman who broke your heart 7 years ago. Sophie Bennett thought she'd buried that pain deep enough to never resurface. She was wrong. Before we dive into this emotional roller coaster, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The phone rang at exactly 9 a.m. I should have known that call would change everything. I stared at my laptop screen, the cursor blinking mockingly at me. Another Tuesday morning in my Chicago office, surrounded by fabric samples and venue catalogs. The phone's shrill ring cut through my concentration. Bennett Wedding Planning. This is Sophie. Miss Bennett, this is Margaret Whitmore. I need the best wedding planner in Chicago, and everyone says that's you. I straightened in my chair. The Whitmore name carried weight in this city. Old money, society pages, the kind of client who could make or break a career. I'm flattered, Mrs. Whitmore. Tell me about your vision. It's not for me, dear. It's for my daughter-in-law. She's marrying my son in 6 months, and we want something spectacular. Money is no object. My heart did a little dance. This was the kind of opportunity I'd been waiting for since starting my business 3 years ago. I'd love to help. What's the bride's name? Isabella Moore. Well, she'll be Isabella Whitmore soon enough. The name hit me like a physical blow. Isabella. Common enough name. I told myself couldn't be her. The universe wasn't that cruel. Could you tell me a bit more about what they're looking for? Elegant, romantic, but not stuffy. Isabella has exquisite taste. She's an art curator, you know, very sophisticated. My hands started trembling. Art curator, just like she'd always dreamed of becoming. Mrs. Whitmore. Could I get Isabella's contact information? I prefer to work directly with the bride to understand her vision. Of course, let me give you her number. I scribbled down the digits, my handwriting getting shakier with each number. It couldn't be her. Chicago was a big city. There had to be hundreds of Isabella Moores. When would you like to schedule the initial consultation? How about Thursday afternoon, 2 at the Drake Hotel? Isabella suggested the Palm Court. She says it has the right ambiance for planning. The Drake Hotel, where we'd had our first real date, sharing champagne and talking until the staff started stacking chairs around us. That sounds perfect, I managed to say, though my voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Wonderful. Oh, and Sophie, this wedding needs to be perfect. Isabella deserves nothing less. After hanging up, I sat in the silence of my office, staring at the phone number. 7 digits that could either launch my career or destroy what little peace I'd managed to build. I thought about Isabella constantly for the next 2 days. Not the Isabella from my memories, the 2-year-old with paint-stained fingers and wild dreams. But this new version, successful, engaged, moving on with her life while I was still here, helping other people find their happily ever after. Thursday arrived with typical Chicago gloom. I chose my most professional outfit, a navy blazer and pencil skirt that made me feel armored. My reflection in the elevator's polished doors showed a composed businesswoman, not the heartbroken girl who'd cried for months after Isabella left. The Palm Court buzzed with afternoon conversation. I arrived 15 minutes early, claiming a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. My portfolio sat open in front of me, though I couldn't focus on the pages. At exactly 2, I saw her. Isabella Moore walked through the entrance like she owned the place. Her dark hair shorter now, styled in a sleek bob that framed her face perfectly. She wore a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and she moved with the confidence of someone who'd found her place in the world. She was more beautiful than I remembered, if that was even possible. Our eyes met across the room, and I watched her face cycle through confusion, recognition, and something that might have been panic. She stopped walking entirely, causing a small traffic jam behind her. For a moment, we just stared at each other across 7 years of silence. Then she straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and walked toward my table like she was approaching a business meeting, nothing more. Sophie Bennett, she said, extending her hand. I should have known. I stood on unsteady legs and shook her hand, trying to ignore the familiar warmth of her skin. Isabella, congratulations on your engagement. She sat down across from me, placing her purse carefully on the table between us like a barrier. Thank you. I have to admit, I'm surprised to see you here. I could say the same thing. We sat in awkward silence for a moment, the weight of our history pressing down on the table between us. So, I said, opening my portfolio with hands that barely shook. Tell me about your dream wedding. Isabella's fingers drummed against her coffee cup. A nervous habit I remembered from college. Some things never changed. Before we start, she said, her voice carefully controlled. I need to know if this is going to be a problem. What do you mean? You know exactly what I mean, Sophie. I straightened my spine, channeling every ounce of professionalism I'd cultivated over the years. I'm a professional, Isabella. Your personal history with me won't affect the quality of service you receive. She studied my face, searching for cracks in my composure. Good, because this wedding is important to me, to my family. Of course it is. Every bride deserves perfection on her wedding day. The words tasted bitter, but I forced them out with a smile. Tell me about your fiancé, I said, pen poised over my notepad. What's he like? Isabella's expression shifted, becoming softer, more genuine. Actually, she said, and I caught something strange in her voice. I think it would be better if you met both of us together. Would that be possible? Absolutely. When would work for you? How about right now? She's actually waiting outside. The pen slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the table. She? Isabella's cheeks flushed pink. I should have mentioned that earlier. My fiancé is Rebecca Whitmore, Margaret's daughter. The world tilted sideways. Isabella was marrying a woman. Isabella, who'd left me 7 years ago, saying she needed to figure things out and find herself, was marrying a woman. I see. I managed, though I didn't see anything clearly anymore. Is that going to be a problem? No, of course not. I've planned several same-sex weddings. They're always beautiful. Isabella nodded and pulled out her phone. I'll text her to come in. While we waited, I tried to process this information. Isabella had figured herself out, apparently, just not with me. There she is, Isabella said, waving toward the entrance. Rebecca Whitmore was everything I wasn't. Tall, blonde, with the kind of effortless elegance that came from generations of good breeding. She moved through the restaurant like she belonged there, which she probably did. Becca, this is Sophie Bennett, the wedding planner I told you about. Rebecca extended a perfectly manicured hand. Sophie, I've heard wonderful things about your work, though Isabella seemed a bit surprised when she heard your name. I glanced at Isabella, who was studying her coffee cup intently. We went to college together, Isabella said simply. How wonderful. Old friends planning your wedding. This is going to be so much fun. Rebecca's enthusiasm was genuine and infectious. I found myself liking her despite everything, which somehow made this whole situation worse. So tell me about your vision, I said, focusing on Rebecca. What's your dream wedding? Rebecca's eyes lit up. Something romantic, but not too traditional. We want it to feel like us, you know. Isabella has such incredible taste, and I trust her completely. I watched Isabella's face as Rebecca spoke, noting the way her expression softened when she looked at her fiancé. It was the same look she used to give me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. What about you, Isabella? What elements are important to you? Isabella met my eyes for the first time since Rebecca arrived. I want something timeless, elegant, but warm, somewhere that feels like home. The word hung between us, loaded with memories of lazy Sunday mornings in our tiny Boston apartment, of planning our own future together over coffee and stolen kisses. I have some ideas, I said, flipping through my portfolio. What's your budget looking like? Whatever it takes, Rebecca said. Mother insists on paying for everything, and she wants it to be spectacular. We spent the next hour going through venues, themes, and timelines. I took notes mechanically, my professional autopilot engaged, while my heart hammered against my ribs. Isabella barely spoke, letting Rebecca drive most of the conversation. But I felt her watching me, studying my reactions, looking for signs of the girl she used to know. I think the Chicago Botanic Garden would be perfect for the ceremony, I suggested. The Rose Garden is stunning in June, and it photographs beautifully. That sounds amazing, Rebecca said. What do you think, Izzy? Izzy. The nickname made my chest tight. Only I had called her that back when we were young and stupid and thought love was enough. It sounds lovely, Isabella said quietly. Perfect. When can we see it? I can arrange a tour for next week. How does Tuesday work? Tuesday's great. Oh, and Sophie, I hope this isn't presumptuous, but would you like to join us for dinner sometime? I'd love to hear more college stories about Isabella. Isabella's coffee cup hit the saucer with a sharp clink. That's very kind, I said carefully, but I prefer to keep things professional with clients. Of course I understand. Well, we should probably get going. Isabella has a gallery opening tonight. They gathered their things, Rebecca chattering about the wedding, while Isabella remained silent. Thank you for meeting with us, Isabella said as they prepared to leave. I'll call you tomorrow to confirm the garden tour. Looking forward to it. I watched them walk away together, Rebecca's hand resting on the small of Isabella's back in a gesture so familiar it made my stomach clench. Isabella looked back once just before they reached the door. Our eyes met for a split second, and I saw something there that looked almost like regret. Then they were gone, leaving me alone with my cold coffee and the wreckage of my carefully constructed composure. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every moment from the afternoon. Seeing Isabella again had unlocked a door I'd spent years keeping sealed shut. I found myself remembering Boston, our senior year at Emerson College. Isabella had been an art history major with dreams of curating exhibitions that would change how people saw the world. I was studying business, practical and focused, already planning the wedding business I'd eventually start. We'd met in a coffee shop near campus. I was cramming for a marketing exam, surrounded by textbooks and empty espresso cups. She was sketching in a worn leather journal, her dark hair falling across her face as she worked. "Excuse me," she'd said, looking up from her drawing. "I know this sounds weird, but would you mind if I sketched you? The light is hitting your face perfectly and you have this incredibly focused expression." I should have said no. I had an exam the next morning and I didn't have time for distractions. But something about her voice, the way she tilted her head when she asked, made me nod yes. She drew me for 20 minutes, occasionally glancing up to study my features. When she finished, she turned the journal around to show me. It was beautiful. She'd captured something in my expression that I'd never seen in mirrors. A kind of quiet determination. A strength I didn't know I possessed. "Keep it," she said, tearing the page out carefully. "Consider it payment for being such a good model." I still had that drawing tucked away in a box I pretended I'd thrown out years ago. We started meeting at that coffee shop regularly. She'd sketch while I studied, and gradually we began talking about art, about dreams, about the futures we were building in our minds. Isabella saw beauty everywhere, in the way morning light hit brick buildings, in the expressions of strangers on the subway, in the organized chaos of my study notes spread across the table. She taught me to notice things I'd never paid attention to before. Our first kiss happened on a snowy February night. We'd been walking back from a gallery opening, arguing about whether contemporary art had lost its soul. Isabella was passionate in her defense of modern artists, gesturing wildly as she spoke. "You're impossible," I'd said, laughing at her intensity. "And you're beautiful," she'd replied, stopping suddenly in the middle of the sidewalk. Snow was falling around us, catching in her dark hair like tiny stars. She reached up and touched my face, her fingers cold against my cheek. "Can I kiss you?" she whispered. I nodded and she leaned in, pressing her lips to mine with a gentleness that made my knees weak. She tasted like wine and possibility, and in that moment, I knew my life had just changed forever. We were inseparable after that. Isabella would spend hours in my tiny apartment painting while I worked on business plans. She'd critique my marketing strategies with the same intensity she brought to analyzing Renaissance masterpieces. "You're going to be amazing," she'd tell me, curled up against my side as we planned our future together. "You're going to help people create the most beautiful days of their lives." "What about you?" I'd ask. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to curate exhibitions that make people fall in love with art all over again." And maybe she'd add, kissing my neck, "I'll curate a life with you." We talked about everything. Marriage, careers, the apartment we'd get together after graduation. Isabella wanted to move to New York, where the art world was more vibrant. I was flexible. My business could work anywhere. But as graduation approached, something changed. Isabella became distant, distracted. She'd stare out windows during conversations, her mind somewhere I couldn't follow. "What's wrong?" I'd ask, and she'd shake her head, forcing a smile. "Nothing, just nervous about the future, I guess." The end came 2 weeks before graduation. Isabella showed up at my apartment with red-rimmed eyes and a suitcase. "I can't do this anymore," she said without preamble. "Do what? What are you talking about?" "This. Us. I need to figure out who I am without you." The words hit me like physical blows. "I don't understand. I thought we were happy." "We are. That's the problem." She sat down heavily on my couch, the same couch where we'd planned our future just days before. "I've never been alone, Sophie. I went from my parents' house to college to this. I don't know who I am when I'm not part of a couple. So, we'll figure it out together. That's what people do when they love each other." "I do love you," That's why I have to go. She left that night, taking only what she could carry. I found her engagement ring, the simple silver band I'd given her for Christmas, on my nightstand the next morning, along with a note that said simply, "I'm sorry." I didn't see her at graduation. Her parents told me she'd moved to Europe, some art program in Florence. I waited for months for her to call, to write, to give me some sign that what we'd had meant something. She never did. Now lying in my Chicago bedroom 7 years later, I wondered if she'd found what she was looking for. If Rebecca Whitmore was the person Isabella had become when she figured out who she was without me, the thought should have brought closure. Instead, it just made the ache in my chest deeper. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from an unknown number. "It's Isabella. Thank you for being professional today. I know this can't be easy." I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "Just doing my job." Her response came immediately. "I know. You always were good at that." I turned off my phone and pulled the covers over my head, but sleep still wouldn't come. The Chicago Botanic Garden tour was scheduled for 10 a.m., on a Tuesday that dawned crisp and clear. I arrived early, needing time to compose myself before facing Isabella again. The rose garden was at its peak, hundreds of blooms creating a tapestry of color and fragrance. It was the kind of setting that made even the most cynical person believe in love. Perfect for a wedding, perfect for breaking my heart all over again. "Sophie," Rebecca's voice carried across the garden. She approached with her usual enthusiasm, Isabella trailing behind her like a reluctant shadow. "This place is incredible," Rebecca continued, spinning around to take in the view. "Isabella, look at those climbing roses. They'd be perfect for the ceremony backdrop." Isabella nodded, but her attention was focused on me. "Good morning, Sophie." "Morning. I thought we'd start with the ceremony site and work our way through the reception options." I led them down the main path, pointing out features and possibilities while trying to ignore the way Isabella's presence seemed to charge the air around me. "The Rose Garden can accommodate up to 150 guests for the ceremony," I explained, stopping at the central gazebo. We'd position the altar here with seating arranged in a semicircle. Rebecca was taking pictures with her phone, already envisioning the day. "What do you think about timing?" "Late afternoon for the ceremony." "Golden hour would be beautiful," I agreed. "Around 4, depending on the exact date." "June 15th, Isabella said quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken since we arrived. I made a note, trying not to think about the significance of the date. June 15th had been our anniversary, the day we'd first kissed in that snowy Boston street. "Perfect timing for roses," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil in my chest. We moved through the garden, discussing logistics and possibilities. Rebecca asked a million questions, her excitement infectious. Isabella remained mostly silent, occasionally offering input when directly asked. "What about photos?" Rebecca asked as we approached a secluded grove. "This spot is gorgeous. It's one of my favorite locations for portraits," I said. "The light filtering through the trees creates a natural softbox effect." Isabella stepped into the grove, running her fingers along the bark of an old oak tree. "It's peaceful here. You always loved quiet spaces," I said before I could stop myself. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the years fell away. I could see the girl who used to find hidden corners in museums, who dragged me to empty parks just to sit and observe the world. "Some things don't change," she said softly. Rebecca appeared beside us, oblivious to the undercurrent of tension. "This is definitely where we want to do our couple's portraits, right, Izzy?" The nickname still made me flinch. Isabella noticed, her expression flickering with something that might have been regret. "Yes, it's lovely." We continued the tour, visiting the reception pavilion and discussing catering options. I maintained my professional demeanor, but I could feel Isabella watching me, studying my reactions. "I think we've seen enough for today," Rebecca said finally. "This place is perfect. When can we book it?" "I'll call them this afternoon and get the contract started." "Wonderful. I have to run to a meeting, but Isabella can handle any remaining details. Right, babe?" Isabella's smile looked forced. "Of course." Rebecca kissed Isabella's cheek and hurried off, leaving us alone among the roses. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. "She seems lovely," I said finally. "She is, Rebecca's. She's everything I should want." The phrasing was odd, but I didn't push. "How long have you been together?" 2 years. We met at a gallery opening. She was there with her mother and I was curating the exhibition. "So, you made it, the curator thing." Isabella's smile was genuine for the first time all day. I did. I work for the Art Institute now. It's everything I dreamed it would be. I'm glad. You deserve to have your dreams come true. We started walking back toward the parking area, our steps slow and measured. What about you? Isabella asked. Are you happy with your business? I mean, I am. It's challenging but rewarding. I get to help people create perfect moments, even when your own perfect moment got away. The question hung in the air between us. I stopped walking, turning to face her. Isabella, what are we doing here? I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. This tension, these loaded conversations. If you want me to plan your wedding, we need to establish some boundaries. She was quiet for a long moment, her fingers twisting the engagement ring on her left hand. You're right. I'm sorry. This is just harder than I expected. Then maybe you should find another planner. No. The word came out sharper than she'd intended. I mean, I don't want to do that. You're the best in the city, and Rebecca's heart is set on working with you. And what about your heart, Isabella? What's that set on? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Isabella's eyes widened, and I saw her carefully constructed composure crack just slightly. My heart doesn't get a vote anymore, she said quietly. I made my choice a long time ago. And you're happy with that choice? She looked away, focusing on a climbing rose that had wound itself around a nearby trellis. Happiness is complicated, Sophie. You know that. It doesn't have to be, doesn't it? Look at us standing here pretending we're strangers when we both know. She trailed off, shaking her head. No. What? Nothing. Forget I said anything. She started walking again, faster this time. I caught up with her at the parking lot. Isabella, wait. She turned and I saw tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. I should go. Rebecca's expecting me for lunch. Of course she is. Isabella paused with her hand on her car door. Sophie. Yeah? Thank you for being professional about this. I know it can't be easy. You keep saying that like you know how I feel, don't I? The question hung between us as she got in her car and drove away, leaving me standing alone in the parking lot with the scent of roses and the weight of everything we'd left unsaid. 3 weeks later, we were deep into wedding planning mode. I'd thrown myself into the details with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Anything to avoid thinking about the way Isabella's voice softened when she said my name, or how she still tucked her hair behind her left ear when she was nervous. The rehearsal was scheduled for a Thursday evening at the Botanic Garden. The weather forecast had called for clear skies, but Chicago had other plans. By 5, rain was falling in steady sheets, turning our outdoor rehearsal into an indoor scramble. The pavilion will work fine, I assured Rebecca over the phone. We'll just run through the ceremony logistics inside. Are you sure? Isabella's been so stressed about everything being perfect. I glanced across the pavilion where Isabella stood by the windows watching the rain with an unreadable expression. Everything will be beautiful, Rebecca. Trust me. The wedding party arrived in dribs and drabs, shaking off umbrellas and laughing about the weather. Rebecca's family was exactly what I'd expected. Polished, wealthy, comfortable in their own skin. Isabella's side was smaller, more eclectic. Her parents had flown in from Boston, along with her sister and a few close friends. Sophie Bennett, Isabella's mother said, approaching me with a warm smile. I remember you from college. How wonderful that you're planning Isabella's wedding. Mrs. Moore's kindness made my chest tight. She'd always treated me like family during those college years, insisting I call her Linda, and including me in holiday celebrations. It's good to see you again, Mrs. Moore. Linda, please. You know, Isabella mentioned you'd become a wedding planner. I always thought you'd be wonderful at it. You were so organized, even in college. I smiled, remembering how Isabella used to tease me about my color-coded study schedules and meticulously planned dates. Thank you. That means a lot. She was heartbroken when you two lost touch, Linda continued, lowering her voice. I always hoped you'd reconnect someday. Before I could respond, Rebecca clapped her hands together, calling for attention. Okay, everyone. Sophie's going to walk us through the ceremony. I launched into my rehearsal routine, positioning family members and explaining the processional order. Isabella stood with the wedding party, but I could feel her watching me as I worked. Isabella, you'll enter last, I explained, walking down the center aisle to meet Rebecca at the altar. What about music? Asked Rebecca's mother. We should practice with the actual songs. The string quartet couldn't make it tonight because of the rain, I said. We'll just walk through the timing. But Rebecca had already pulled out her phone, connecting it to a portable speaker she'd brought. The opening notes of Pachelbel's canon filled the pavilion. Perfect, Let's do a full run-through. I positioned myself at the back of the space, watching as the wedding party processed down the makeshift aisle. Rebecca's bridesmaids moved with practiced grace, followed by Isabella's more bohemian friends. Then Rebecca appeared, radiant in jeans and a sweater, practicing her bridal walk. She moved with confidence, smiling at her family and friends as she made her way toward the altar. Finally, it was Isabella's turn. She stepped into position at the back of the pavilion, and something shifted in the atmosphere. Even in casual clothes, even at a simple rehearsal, she commanded attention. She moved down the aisle with a grace that took my breath away, her eyes fixed on Rebecca, waiting at the altar. But halfway down the aisle, her gaze found mine. Time seemed to slow. The music continued, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Isabella's steps faltered slightly, and I saw something raw and vulnerable cross her face before she looked away, focusing on Rebecca again. "Beautiful," Rebecca's mother called out as Isabella reached the altar. "Now, let's practice the vows." "Actually," the officiant said, "I'd like to run through the ring exchange first." I watched from the back as they went through the motions, Isabella and Rebecca facing each other, speaking words of love and commitment. It should have felt final seeing them together like this. Instead, it felt like watching a performance where one of the actors had forgotten their lines. "Perfect," I said when they finished. "I think we're all set for Saturday." The group began to disperse, people heading to their cars through the rain. I was packing up my notes when Isabella approached. "Sophie, could I talk to you for a minute?" I looked around. Rebecca was saying goodbye to her parents, and most of the wedding party had already left. "Sure, what's on your mind?" Isabella glanced toward the windows where rain was still streaming down the glass. "I wanted to thank you for everything. I know this hasn't been easy. You keep saying that because it's true, and because I need you to know that I appreciate how professional you've been." "It's my job, Isabella." Is it? Is it just a job?" The question hung between us, loaded with 7 years of unspoken words. "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Maybe I want you to tell me this is as hard for you as it is for me." I set down my clipboard, really looking at her for the first time all evening. "Why? What difference would that make?" "I don't know. Maybe it would make me feel less crazy." "Crazy how?" Isabella ran her hands through her hair, a gesture I remembered from college when she was struggling with a difficult concept. "I keep thinking about Boston, about us, about the way you used to look at me, like I was the most important thing in your world." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Isabella, I know I don't have the right to say this. I know I gave up that right when I left. But seeing you again, working with you, it's bringing back everything I thought I'd buried. You're getting married in 3 days. I know. To someone who loves you. I know that too." "Then what are you saying?" Isabella stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something different from what she used to wear, more sophisticated, more expensive. "I'm saying that I made a mistake 7 years ago. A huge, life-altering mistake." "Isabella, don't. I thought I needed to find myself, but all I did was lose the best thing that ever happened to me." "Stop. You can't say these things to me." "Not now." "When then? After the wedding? After I've committed my life to someone else?" "You already have committed your life to someone else. You're wearing her ring." Isabella looked down at the diamond on her finger like she'd forgotten it was there. "I know, and Rebecca is wonderful. She's everything I should want. She's stable, successful, comes from a good family. She makes sense. And I didn't. You made too much sense. You were everything I wanted, and everything I was afraid of wanting." Thunder rumbled overhead and the rain intensified against the windows. "I should go," I said, reaching for my bag. "Sophie, wait." "No, Isabella, I can't do this. I won't be the other woman in your story." "That's not what I'm asking, isn't it?" "What exactly are you asking?" Isabella was quiet for a long moment, tears mixing with the rain sounds around us. "I don't know," she whispered. "I just know that in 3 days I'm going to marry someone else, and I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to fight for us." "You had 7 years to be brave, Isabella. 7 years to pick up the phone, to write a letter, to show up at my door. You chose not to." "I was scared." "Of what? Of this? Of feeling like I can't breathe when you're not around. Of needing someone so much it terrifies me." I stared at her, seeing the girl I'd fallen in love with underneath the polished exterior. "It's too late," I said finally. "Is it?" Before I could answer, Rebecca's voice echoed across the pavilion. "Izzy, babe, are you ready to go?" Isabella stepped back, wiping her eyes quickly. "Coming," she called back, then looked at me one more time. "I'm sorry, Sophie, for everything." She walked away, leaving me standing alone in the empty pavilion with the sound of rain and the echo of words that had come 7 years too late. I didn't sleep that night or the next. By Friday evening, I was running on caffeine and sheer determination, making final preparations for a wedding I wasn't sure I could watch happen. The flowers had been delivered, the cake was perfect, and every detail was in place. All that remained was getting through the next 24 hours without falling apart. I was in my office going over the timeline one final time when my phone rang. "Sophie, it's Rebecca." Her voice sounded strange, tight, strained. "Hi, Rebecca. Is everything okay? Do you need anything for tomorrow? Actually, I need to talk to you. Could you meet me somewhere tonight?" Something in her tone made my stomach clench. "Of course. Where? The Drake Hotel? The Palm Court? I know it's where you and Isabella first met to discuss the wedding." My blood ran cold. "Rebecca, what's going on? Just please, can you be there in an hour?" I found Rebecca sitting at the same table where Isabella and I had our first consultation. She looked smaller somehow, her usual confidence replaced by something fragile. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "Rebecca, you're scaring me. What's wrong?" She was quiet for a moment, staring at her hands folded on the table. "Isabella told me," she said finally. "Told you what? About you two? About college? About what happened at the rehearsal?" My heart stopped. "Rebecca, I can explain." "Can you? Can you explain why my fiancé is in love with someone else?" The words hit me like a physical blow. She said that. She didn't have to. I've known something was wrong for weeks. The way she looks at you, the way she gets quiet whenever your name comes up. I'm not stupid, Sophie. I didn't know what to say. There was no defense for what had happened. No way to minimize the damage. "I'm sorry," I said finally. "I never meant for any of this to happen." "I know. That's what makes it worse somehow. If you'd been trying to steal her away, I could hate you. But you've been nothing but professional." Rebecca signaled the waiter for another drink, her hands shaking slightly. "Do you love her?" she asked. The question hung between us. I could lie, try to protect what was left of their relationship. But Rebecca deserved the truth. "Yes," I said quietly. I never stopped. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. "She loves you too. You know that, right, Rebecca?" "No, let me finish. Isabella loves you in a way she'll never love me. I've known it for months, maybe longer. I just kept hoping it would change." "What are you going to do?" Rebecca was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the Chicago skyline. "I'm going to let her go," she said finally. "What?" "I'm calling off the wedding." "Rebecca, no. You can't do that. Think about your family, the guests, everything that's been planned. I can't marry someone who's in love with someone else. Sophie, I won't do that to any of us. But Isabella chose you. She's here. She's wearing your ring. Because she thinks it's the right thing to do. Because she's trying to be the person she thinks she should be instead of who she really is." Rebecca pulled off her engagement ring, setting it on the table between us. "I love Isabella enough to want her to be happy, even if it's not with me." "Where is she now?" "At home packing for our honeymoon. She doesn't know I'm here." "Rebecca, please think about this. Don't make a decision you'll regret." "The only thing I'd regret is trapping someone in a marriage based on obligation instead of love." She stood up, leaving money on the table for her drink. "Take care of her, Sophie. She's going to need you." "Wait, what am I supposed to do? How do I figure it out? You two have wasted enough time already." She walked away, leaving me alone with the engagement ring and the weight of what had just happened. I sat there for a long time, staring at the diamond that caught the restaurant's soft lighting. Tomorrow, 150 people would arrive at the Botanic Garden, expecting a wedding. Vendors would be setting up, flowers would be arranged, and a bride would be getting ready for a ceremony that was no longer going to happen. My phone buzzed. A text from Isabella. "Can't sleep. Keep thinking about tomorrow and about what I said at the rehearsal. I'm sorry if I made things complicated." I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. What was I supposed to say? That her fiancé had just called off their wedding, that everything was about to change. Instead, I typed, "Where are you right now?" "At home." Rebecca went out to meet a friend. "Why?" "I'm coming over." "Sophie, that's not a good idea. We need to talk." "What's your address?" She sent it reluctantly along with, Are you sure about this? I wasn't sure about anything anymore, but I got in my car and drove through the Chicago night toward whatever came next. Isabella's apartment was in Lincoln Park, a converted brownstone with ivy climbing the front facade. I stood on her doorstep for a full minute before finding the courage to ring the bell. She opened the door wearing pajama pants and an old college sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked young and vulnerable and heartbreakingly beautiful. "Sophie, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Can I come in?" She stepped aside and I walked into her living space. It was exactly what I'd expected. Eclectic art on the walls, books everywhere, the kind of organized chaos that had always been uniquely Isabella. "Do you want some tea? Coffee?" "Isabella, sit down." Something in my voice made her freeze. "What's going on?" "Rebecca came to see me tonight." Isabella's face went pale. "What did she say?" "She knows. About us. About college. About what happened at the rehearsal." Isabella sank onto her couch, her hands covering her face. "Oh God, what did you tell her?" "The truth. That I love you. That I never stopped loving you." Isabella looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "Sophie, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." She called off the wedding. The words hung in the air between us. Isabella stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "What?" She called off. She said she won't marry someone who's in love with someone else. Isabella stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. No, she can't do that. The guests, the venue, her family. She doesn't care about any of that. I have to call her. I have to fix this." "Isabella, stop." She turned to face me, her expression wild. "I can't let her do this. I can't let her sacrifice everything because I'm a coward. What if she's right? What if you are in love with someone else? That doesn't matter, doesn't it?" I stepped closer, close enough to see the tears on her cheeks. "Isabella, look at me. Really, look at me. Are you in love with Rebecca? I care about her. I respect her. That's not what I asked." Isabella was quiet for a long moment, her eyes searching my face. "No," she whispered. "I'm not in love with Rebecca." "Then who are you in love with? You know the answer to that. I need to hear you say it." Isabella took a shaky breath. "I'm in love with you, Sophie. I've been in love with you for 7 years, even when I was trying not to be." The confession hung between us, raw and honest, and 7 years overdue. "Then why did you leave? Why did you put us both through this?" "Because I was 22 and terrified and stupid. Because I thought love was supposed to be easy, and what we had was so intense it scared me. And now I know that easy isn't the same as right. And I know that I've spent 7 years trying to find something that felt like what we had, and nothing ever came close." I reached out, touching her face gently. "So, what do we do now?" "I don't know. I've made such a mess of everything. We'll figure it out together." "Sophie, I hurt you. I left you. How can you even stand to look at me?" "Because I love you. Because some things are worth fighting for, even when it's complicated." Isabella leaned into my touch, closing her eyes. "I don't deserve you. That's not your decision to make." She opened her eyes, and I saw hope there for the first time in weeks. "What happens now?" "Now we start over. We take it slow. We figure out who we are now, and we see if what we had can become something even better. And the wedding. We'll deal with that tomorrow. Tonight it's just us." Isabella nodded, tears still falling, but her expression lighter than I'd seen it since that first day at the Drake Hotel. "I love you, Sophie Bennett." "I love you too, Isabella Moore." She kissed me then, soft and tentative and full of promise. It tasted like coming home. 6 months later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of my apartment as I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the simple white dress I'd chosen for today. My hands were shaking, not from nerves, but from excitement. "You look beautiful," Isabella said from the doorway, already dressed in her own cream gown. "We're not supposed to see each other before the ceremony," I said, but I was smiling. "Since when do we follow traditional rules?" She was right. Nothing about our story had been traditional. The past 6 months had been a journey of rediscovery. After the wedding that never happened, Isabella and I had taken things slowly. We'd gone to counseling, both together and separately, working through the hurt and fear that had kept us apart for 7 years. Rebecca had been gracious about everything, even helping us navigate the aftermath of the canceled wedding. She'd found love herself with someone from her art history graduate program, and we'd all managed to become friends of sorts. "Are you ready for this?" Isabella asked, stepping into the room. I've been ready for 7 years. Today's ceremony would be nothing like the elaborate affair I'd planned for Isabella and Rebecca. We'd chosen a small garden behind a bed and breakfast in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Just our families, a few close friends, and the officiant who'd married my parents 30 years ago. "The car's here," Isabella said, checking her phone. We rode to the venue together, our hands intertwined, watching the Wisconsin countryside roll past the windows. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd done this 7 years ago?" Isabella asked. "Sometimes, but I think we needed those years apart. We needed to become who we are now." "Who are we now?" I considered the question. "We're two people who know what it's like to lose each other, who won't take this for granted." The bed and breakfast was a Victorian house surrounded by gardens that rivaled anything I'd ever planned for clients. Our families were already there mingling on the back lawn. "Sophie." My mother rushed over, enveloping me in a hug. "You look radiant." "Thanks, Mom. I'm so happy for you both. I always hoped you'd find your way back to each other." Isabella's parents were equally warm, treating me like the daughter they'd always considered me to be. 5 minutes, the officiant announced. Isabella and I took our positions at opposite ends of the garden. Unlike traditional ceremonies, we decided to walk toward each other, meeting in the middle. The string quartet, the same one that had been scheduled for the cancelled wedding, began playing. Not Pachelbel's Canon this time, but At Last by James, the song that had been playing in that Boston coffee shop the first time Isabella sketched me. I started walking, my eyes fixed on Isabella as she moved toward me from the other side of the garden. She was more beautiful than ever, her face radiant with joy and certainty. We met in the center under an arch of climbing roses that reminded me of our first venue tour. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi yourself." The officiant began the ceremony, but I barely heard the words. I was lost in Isabella's eyes and the promise of the future we were finally brave enough to claim. "Do you, Sophie, take Isabella to be your wife, to love and cherish, in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do. I absolutely do." "And do you, Isabella, take Sophie to be your wife, to love and cherish, in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do. I've been waiting 7 years to say that." We exchanged rings, simple gold bands that we'd chosen together, inscribed with the date of our first kiss in Boston. "By the power vested in me by the state of Wisconsin, I now pronounce you married. You may kiss your bride." Isabella cupped my face in her hands, her thumb brushing away a tear I didn't realize had fallen. "I love you, Mrs. Bennett Moore." "I love you too, Mrs. Bennett Moore." She kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Our families cheered, and somewhere in the distance, I heard the sound of camera shutters clicking. The reception was held in the garden with tables scattered under string lights and paper lanterns. Isabella had insisted on doing the flowers herself. Wild flowers and garden roses in mason jars, simple and perfect. "Speech, speech," someone called out as we cut the cake. Isabella and I looked at each other and she nodded. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice carrying across the garden. 7 years ago, Isabella and I thought we knew what love was. We thought it was supposed to be easy, uncomplicated, without fear or doubt. We were wrong, Isabella continued, taking my hand. "Love isn't easy, it's brave. It's choosing each other every day, even when it's scary." "We lost each other for a while," I said. "But we found our way back, and now we know that some love stories don't follow a straight line. Sometimes they take detours, sometimes they get lost. But if they're meant to be, they find their way home to second chances." Isabella raised her glass. "To coming home, to love that's worth waiting for," I added. Our families chorused. As the evening wound down, Isabella and I found ourselves alone in the garden, swaying to music that existed only in our hearts. "No regrets?" she asked. "Only one." "What's that?" "That we waited so long to get here?" Isabella smiled, spinning me around under the stars. "We're here now. That's what matters. What happens next?" "Next, we go on our honeymoon to Italy. Then we come home and figure out how to merge 2 lives into one. And after that, we live happily ever after." I laughed, pulling her closer. "You make it sound so simple." "Maybe it is. Maybe we just overthought it before. Maybe we did." As we danced in our garden, surrounded by the people who loved us, I thought about all the weddings I'd planned over the years, all the couples I'd helped create their perfect day. I'd always wondered what my own wedding would feel like. Now I knew it felt like coming home. Thank you, Isabella whispered against my ear. For what? For not giving up on us. For believing we could find our way back to each other. Thank you for being brave enough to try. I love you, Sophie Bennett Moore. I love you too, Isabella Bennett Moore. The stars wheeled overhead, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear the sound of our families laughing and celebrating. Tomorrow, we'd start our new life together. Tonight, we danced in a garden full of roses, finally home where we belonged. And if you're watching this and believe in second chances, in love that finds its way back, please subscribe to our channel and share your own love story in the comments. Because sometimes the best endings are really just new beginnings.